Hey fellow nuclear barons, it's me, Mario. Today we're talking about Nucleum once again, and about Experiment B in particular. This is my favorite experiment by far. It's the one I've been playing the most, so it's the one I feel more entitled to talk about. I've won a lot of games with it. I think it's very strong. In my opinion, it might be the strongest one, but it's just because it fits into my play style more, I think. So I still have to understand in a better way the other experiments, while with experiment A, I think I have really a solid grasp on the possible options you have to win a game with it. So let's start off with what's unique about experiment A, other than the tile pairings. We are going to talk about tiles real soon, but let's talk about the techs of the experiment. So the first one, unique, is A1. After placing a minor turbine, gain 1 uranium. This is by far the strongest level 1 tech, I think, of the ongoing ones, not of the one-off ones, because it gives you a full uranium each time that you take an action, while all the other ones will give you either 1 star or 1 coin. This one is incredibly strong in the early game, and it determines a lot of the early openings that you have available with Experiment A. The other unique one is A5. A5 is just meh, in my opinion. It's very good for the workers, but you don't really need too many coins later on with this experiment, in my opinion. It's still good. I mean, it's good that it's a one-off you can take anytime. You don't have to think about timing or anything. It's just always good when you can take it. And the other two ones, of course, the level 3 ones. A7 is, in my opinion, economically speaking, the strongest option among all the experiments. So unlocking it early and unlocking it always are the main plans of Experiment A. And the other one is the level 3 tech, which in my opinion is the easiest one to achieve among all the level 3 techs that give you points at the end of the game. You need to have 9 buildings among urban and industrial in different cities, but since you've got this awesome power that discounts by 2 all the urban buildings and you can place them wherever you want without caring about network, in my opinion it's quite easy. I've reached 7 in all of my games, and I think I've reached 9 in probably something like 80 or even 90% of them. I can't recall right now a game in which I didn't get the full 21 points, but I'm pretty sure it happened. While the other level 3 techs are a bit more difficult in my opinion. So these are the 3 unique parts of the experiment, but of course it's not only about that. Let's talk about the strengths first and foremost. Well, we've already determined that this tech is incredible and this other tech is incredible, so in each game what we want to do is unlock these 2 tech ASAP. This one is very easy thanks to the starting contract. We're also gonna talk soon about the 4 different starting contracts and where you can start to make them work for you. And this other one, you should try to unlock it before placing down, I wouldn't say any urban buildings. I think that placing down 1 or even 2 in some games, it's alright, but definitely you don't need to spend, you really mustn't spend coins on urban buildings before unlocking this tech. This tech is so strong. So it's both a strength and a weakness, the weakness being that you're pretty much rigid. You really want to unlock this one before placing down urban buildings. Let's talk real quick also about the techs, because the starting tiles, sorry, because this one is very strong. In my opinion, this is another part of the strength of Experiment A, is that you get the buy a tile action along with a get a meeple or get 2 coins spare action. I think this is really strong, both to lie a tile on the board as a rail early on, since it does have a rainbow part, and since you can get tiles that will let you buy other tiles. And for other experiments, you really need to hinge upon the free discounted action to buy tiles in the early game, while with Experiment A you can buy tiles 2 times thanks to these tiles without spending many coins. So this is definitely a strength. This tile instead can be both a strength and a weakness depending on the starting contract you get and depending on what you can get out of it and depending on which other tiles you're gonna get, because if this is your main way to industrialize, then it's definitely a weakness, because as we've already talked, we don't really want to place down urban buildings before unlocking the level 3 tech, but to unlock the level 3 tech, most of the time you want to take a flurry of urbanize actions. So this style is, in my opinion, most of the time a weakness, but it can sometimes work out well. The last weakness I would like to really talk about is this one. I mean, there's another glaring weakness, but we're going to talk about it later on. This style is pretty bad. Discount 2 on your second turbine is pretty bad because your second turbine costs as much as the third one, 2 meeples, and the third one is basically a strict upgrade on the second one. And the second one can give you even less point, and the mines linked to it has only 2 slots. So this is definitely a weakness. I only go for the second turbine late in the game if I really need it for some milestone or for some contracts. So how do we start a game with Experiment A? Well, we've discussed about the strengths, so let's play on them. I really think that with this experiment you want to buy industrialized actions early on, especially the discounted ones. Let's see if we can find any. Probably we won't, but I should have thought about it, but I didn't. Alright, like this one. This one is good. 1 free uranium and an industrialized action. You want at least 1 more industrialized action, when not 2 more tiles that give you industrial actions, because there are 2 main ways I think you should open a game with Experiment A. One is the mine rush, and the other one is the early production strategy. With the mine rush, which is the one I'm gonna discuss about first and foremost, you probably want to have either the green or the orange starting contracts. It can work also with the purple, but the purple is very expensive, as you can see. So normally I think it's easier on green because you have 4 slots over here, and with orange because you have 3. So in a mine rush you need 2 things. You need industrialized actions and you need to place down mines. And starting with 2 mines, you can already unlock your starting contracts if it's on orange or green, and you can unlock the level 1 tech. And with that tech, you're basically snowballing your mines because they are gonna give you resources instead of costing you resources. And when going this route, normally I also try to go for the level 3 tech by unlocking the 4th mine and the 4th turbine. It's very strong because, again, one of the weaknesses that you might have in the early game with Experiment A, and even later on, even in the mid game, is not having enough workers. You're going to get coins thanks to the level 3 tech, because you have a big discount on urban buildings. But you might be struggling a bit with figures, with meeples, workers, whatever they're called in this game. So this is one opening strategy that works really well. You don't need to place any urban building before unlocking the level 3 tech, so it works really well, the mine rush with Experiment A. Another start you can have is starting with turbines to use urban buildings, to use neutral buildings, energize them thanks to the level 3 turbine. And it works really well when you have houses as neutral urban buildings, because you can get back the meeples you spent on a turbine, and then you can try to leverage that into going for the 4th mine and the 4th turbine and go ham on them. But going that route, normally I have to place down 1 or even 2 of my own buildings, normally houses again, because I think you need some meeples to go for the start. With both of them, again, you're aiming at unlocking the level 3 tech real fast. A good way, again, is the 4th turbine and mine, but purple contracts can help you a lot in that. So it's something you should look at. From then on, how do you follow up? You follow up by using the networks the other guys have built in the meanwhile to place your own urban buildings, since you can place them anywhere on the map, and use their network to energize them. What you really strive for before the end of the game is securing some kind of network to connect your government buildings, because with Experiment A, normally I try to energize 2 government buildings before the end of the game, because I try to not get too many energize action in the game, unless I started with turbines. But even when I start with turbines, normally I shift towards mines to unlock the level 3 tech and get lots of resources. So I would say you don't need to have many energize actions, you just need a few of them. And you need government buildings to get enough points from these few energizing actions. So the hardest part and a big weakness of Experiment A is that while you're doing all this awesome stuff, spamming around urban buildings, building a lot of mines and sometimes some turbines, and fulfilling a lot of contracts, because that's actually another thing that A is great at. Even if they don't have any dedicated tech to resolving contracts, since they're spamming around buildings and mines, it's very easy normally for them to fulfill quite a lot of contracts. So, since they unlock a lot of contracts, that's an action you have to take. Since they place a lot of buildings, because that's what they do each and every game, trying to place them in 9 different cities. And since you industrialize a lot, you have to give up on something, and there's not enough time to also energize a lot. So, like, in most of my games, I think I take 3 energize actions plus the level 2 tech that gives you an energize action plus 4. So that's a total of 4 energized buildings, and to be able to win, normally you need 2 of them to be government buildings. So a big weakness you can have sometimes is that you can place them in good spots, but the other players are going to shut you off good scoring opportunities. So you really need to have some kind of network, and you really have to jump on the opportunity to share a 2 links railway, because that's the main way you have to connect faraway cities with your government buildings. Especially Dresden is very good to place government buildings. Normally it's kind of well connected, but also Chemnitz can work pretty well. The tricky part are these 1 link railways, because anybody can shut you off good scoring opportunities. So you have to keep an eye on them too, but in general I wouldn't say you want to take too many buy a tile actions and too many railway placement actions. I've been able to work with 3 total railways, I think, but in most games you're gonna place down 4 or 5 sometimes. So that's the general game plan. Let's talk about some not cornerstone cases, but just some cases at the beginning of the game. So if you get a white contract, you have 2 options, in my opinion. One of them is fairly bad, which is starting down here with mines. I really don't like it. You don't get anything for free and you have to spend a lot. The only advantage is that you're really close to Prague, which means you can energize your urban buildings over here. But the thing is, you don't want to focus on one city for urban buildings. You want to spam them around to use your power. So I don't think this kind of opening works really well. So you can start down here. And this is probably my favorite one with early turbines, because you can also leverage this tile decently well. You can start with a house and a 2-cost house and a turbine, and already start energizing the neutral buildings anywhere and your own building over here. Another cornerstone case is starting down here, but I don't really like it. Over here instead, I think it's a trap. It's a very good spot later on, but at the beginning of the game, as we've discussed, you really want to start with industrial buildings, and here there's space only for urban buildings. So I don't love that spot. So with white, I most of the time start down here, or I straight up ignore it if there's another contract to unlock a level 1 tech that's easy to fulfill, like, I don't know, I don't remember them, but there are some that are pretty easy to fulfill at the beginning of the game. When I start with green, I pretty much always start down here, going for a mine rush. And when I start with orange, I pretty much always start here, again, for a mine rush. With purple, I think you get more options. You can start over here and try to energize early on, thanks to the turbine and some spots. Or you can start down here and go for the mines, and then shift to press needs and keep on with your mines, getting a lot of conversions. Basically, 2 coins to 1 uranium is a decent conversion. 2 coins for 1 meeple is a decent conversion in the early game. And again, I think you're struggling most of the time with meeples. So this one is also a decent one. You have to also figure out where to place turbines, because you sometimes have to rely on them for the level 3 tech. And when you start with green, that's the trickiest part. Sometimes you place it here, planning on going to Dresden, but other times you just have to rely on other cities and place them in other cities and already start to connect. Start your connection, like maybe you place a rail over here and a turbine over here, because this will let you connect these 2 cities, which normally gets heavily built in most of the games. So you have to think about that too. Orange, purple, green, and white, I think, are my most common starting spots. But my most common starting action is actually the buy a tile action if there are industrialized actions out. In this case, I'm not sure what I would do, but another good option would be to take this tile. The tricky part is that you need industrialized action early on, but after that you really want urbanized actions. It doesn't matter if they're discounted, it's better if they're discounted, but for example, this tile is amazing in the mid-game for Experiment A. You just want to spam buildings around. So, it's tricky. You really have to put a big emphasis on getting the first industrialized action tile, but after that, if you can get another one, good. But otherwise, it's better to like go for a fast recharge and keep on with that while getting other more useful tiles. You don't need that many tiles with Experiment A because you don't lay many down on the board. So yeah, I've already talked about the 2 big weaknesses on the board, which are getting shut off scoring opportunities with government buildings, and Prague is very hard to optimize for you because you want to spam buildings around. So I would say these are the main things to talk about with the experiment itself. Let's talk about the other assets on the setup that you have to consider when playing a game. These are the milestones, and the best one by a long shot is this one. You should be able to easily get down at least 8, but in most games 10 urban buildings on the board, which means you're gonna get 5 points out of this one, and even better, the other experiments won't be able to optimize it like you do. So this one is the best one, and I like it a lot when it's on the 3rd spot, because I think with Experiment A it's kinda tricky to get to the 4th milestone, so I really like it when it's on the 3rd one. The mines one really work very well too, because you are going to be able to place down 4 mines in most games. I think sometimes you're gonna stop on 3, but in most cases I go up to 4 with Experiment A. And these 2 are also good because probably you're gonna spam all 4 of them in a game. These ones are meh. Turbines can be good early on in your start, normally the 3rd and the 4th one. But it's kinda hard for you to justify going up to 4 because the second one doesn't do much, and the first one is very cheap, but doesn't do much either, and they don't give you many points. So it's meh. You can optimize it if you find that you're gonna place stars close to it, but it's meh. This one, I think it's possible for you to energize building in 4 different cities, but I don't think it's that easy, and you have to go out of your hand a bit to do that. So most of the time you're gonna get 3 out of this one. And this one is kinda bad because, as we're going to see, you have an easy path towards some purple contracts, so I don't really think you need to unlock the level 3 tech thanks to a lab. And the level 1 lab is basically useless because it's so easy for you to fulfill contracts that you are gonna have all the 3 techs, the 3 level 1 techs early on, and even the level 2 techs are going to be easy to get. So this one is kinda meh because I don't think you gain much out of the labs compared to what the other experiments can get out of them. But of course, since you spam buildings, it's still decent. You can still spam all of them and energize only the last one to gain points. I think this is a plan that I've done in the past, and it's not that hard. This one is the hardest one, in my opinion, by quite a wide margin. You are an experiment that wants to fulfill a lot of contracts, which is not something you can do while you lay down railways, and you don't want to get too many tech tiles because, again, you're already heavily taxed on other actions, contracts, urbanizing, and industrializing. So this one is by far the worst. Honestly, it's not that good for anybody other than for experiment D, but I think that for A, it is particularly bad. So these are the rankings for the milestones for you. Then, real quick, these are the neutral buildings, and as we've spoke about a few minutes ago, you really want the houses early on. For you, they are pretty good because you really need meeples, and if nobody is starting with the level 3 turbine, which is kind of uncommon, but it can happen depending on what else is on the board. If you can go as a first action for the level 3 turbine and then energize these 2 buildings, for example, that's already decent, kinda. If you got the tile that will help you energize, this one is even better. Gaining back these guys will let you get also a mine early on, which can snowball into other mines. So these are very good. The other ones, you pretty much ignore them most of the time. Neutral buildings are normally not your cup of tea with experiment A, in my experience, but of course it depends. Also because you don't want to have many energize tiles with the energize action in general, and especially in the early game. So if you get a tile with like industrialize and energize, then it's alright to start with a turbine and get one of these, but otherwise not that relevant other than sometimes the first row. And these are all the purple contracts. Let's talk about the 3 dots, I think these are. Yeah, the 3 dots ones. This one is terrible for you, as we've already talked about. This one is the same, it's very bad. These 2 are basically experiment C or B sometimes, and experiment D or B sometimes. This one can be yours though. Normally you are the one that is gonna fulfill most contracts, but contracts are not always reliable, so somebody can steal it from you. So the 3 dots purple contracts are not that good for you regardless, but this one can be decent. The 2 dots one instead are all very doable for you and are all decent ways to unlock the scoring tech. This is the difference. Both, I mean, not these ones, but I would say this one. All the ones that require you to build stuff on the board are very easy for you to do, and normally you can get them before anybody else. Like 6 total structures in colored towns or cities and different structures. This one is of course the worst because we already discussed that you don't really gain much out of labs, but it's still very doable. All of these are very doable for you once you've unlocked the level 3 tech. So normally you want to unlock the level 3 tech to build first, and then one of these, the one that is into the game, will help you unlock the scoring one. While these 2 are very good for you, and this one particularly, I think you're almost always going to be the first one to go for it if you get at least one industrialized tile. That's because of the level 1 tech that will give you 1 more uranium each time that you play a mine or a turbine. And this one is also very doable because you're the experiment that goes for a mine rush the most, in my opinion. So these two are, the one of these two that is into the game will always be your main path towards the strong level 3 tech, in my opinion. So you can discard going for the 4th turbine and mine if one of these is into the play. This one is again, as the ones in the level 2 dots, very good to unlock the scoring level 3 tech. This one can be decent, but normally somebody else will rush it faster than you because they gain more out of it than you do. So I'm not in love with this one, but it can also work sometimes thanks to the level 1 tech, but it's not my favorite one. And this one is by far the worst one. I mean, you are by far the worst one at going for this one, in my opinion. You don't have anything that gains you extra star on your experiment, and you don't plan to produce a lot in the early game, so energize a lot in the early game, so you're not that good at rushing it. So we've discussed about all the tiers, we've discussed about the openings. I would say this wraps up this experiment 1 experimental video, and I hope you got something out of it. It's really the experiment I've studied the most. I hope I will be able to record videos for the other 3 experiments, but I've already made 2 videos in 2 weeks, which is very above average for Mario these days. So don't expect another video soon, unfortunately, but I will try to put it up. So that's it for today. See you next time. Mario's out. Bye bye.